resilience, I'm going to tell a story. So this is talking about somebody that I know fairly well, and I've asked their permission to share a story, um, or share parts of their story. And as you're hearing about this person, I'd like you to ask yourself the question, knowing what this person has gone through. So I'm going to tell a little bit of the history of this person. Knowing what this person has gone through, what mindset would someone like that have today? Because we know as we have challenges and difficulties in life, there's different options and ways that we can approach life after those disappointments or hurts. This person, I'm going to call him Lester because he wants to remain anonymous, and that's the name that his parents gave him. So I'll just call him that. And we'll hear about a few things in his life. So he said when he was a child, he was bullied in school, and that was something that was a bit hard or difficult for him. When he was 8 years old, and some of you may think, how do I know all this by memory? Well, I'm reading off on notes, which, oh, well, you can see them too. Anyway, never mind. But when he was 8, he grew up on a farm. So when he was 8, he was in an accident and there was a heavy metal piece that came and hit him. So that may account for some of his quirkiness, but that was an event significant in his life. His dad was there, so his dad had picked him up and took him into the house right away. And by his own admission, he was a bit of a jerk. I think sometimes when people are bullied, then there's opportunities or times where they also bully others, trying to reach out or to respond in those situations. When this person was in college, they were very active, or Lester was very active. So he was always taking 5 or 6 courses every semester. And for those of you that have been through college, you know that that's challenging, but he's also often working 10 or 20 hours a week as well on top of that. And as you can see there, it is somebody who's a fellow English teacher. So when they went through to take their TESL training, the grammar section, they didn't fail the whole course, but the grammar session, every time they did the grammar tests, they failed. And they had to redo, restudy, and pass that grammar module. So for those of you, if you've taken the 4 courses, usually there's one course that's more with the grammar and vocabulary, etc. So they failed that 3 times on 3 different tests and had to retake it. And also during their college days, Lester said he was playing ice hockey and got hit and twisted his knee and had to have knee surgery. So lots of things that happened. He had some enjoyable memories from college, but those were the ones that he shared of just the difficulty of those experiences for him. When he was in his early 20s, he was in an accident, and the doctors he had fallen from a height of maybe 10 or 12 feet. The doctor said, you may not walk, well, you may walk, but you're not going to run again because the bones in his ankle had been crushed, and he said a pin was put in. And so that was something that he worked through and had to do. Shortly after that, a few months after, he was in a car accident, and he had been sitting in the back seat, but the way that the people were thrown into the front seat. So he said his face was cut up a bit and he had some scars from that. And then he was diagnosed with cancer. He was teaching overseas, so he had to come back to Canada and had some radiation treatment. So already these highlights are a lot of health issues and a lot of interactive things from that. After that, though, things started to look up. He was married, he had a son, he started teaching when he was back in Canada, and life seemed good. And then his wife was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so that was something that they had to go through together as a family. And so then he became a single dad for a few years and had money issues and work and balancing life, etc. So, it seemed that he had some challenges in college, then life was good for a few years, and then he had some more challenges within his life. So Lester completed his master's degree, went overseas again, was teaching and interacting and came back to Canada. But the reason he emphasized to me about coming back to Canada, both originally here and back here, because he said he felt like a newcomer twice. because he came back very, no credit card or credit history because he'd been away for so long, no rental history. He had to get people to co-sign for him. He didn't have a job lined up coming back, so that was a struggle to find work and to be involved with some things. And a couple of times with job interviews, after the interview, then he was told, well, thank you for applying, but we've hired someone else. And in one of those conversations, he said on the phone, the person said, we hired somebody who was here just a year and a half in Canada. You have way more experience, you're much more qualified, but we're filling our equity, diversity, and inclusion quota. And this person has come from overseas and we're replacing, we're putting that person in that role. So that was quite discouraging, Lester said, because he had admittedly from the HR that he was better qualified, which HR probably shouldn't have shared with him, but anyway, and he was down to $100 in the bank. Funding cuts came up. So many of you knew probably in 2017, 2018, 2019, there were funding cuts with government organizations. He tried to renovate a house and he lost money on that as COVID came in. And then for many of us, he said that was where teaching was hard because instead of teaching in person, he had to switch and start learning how to teach online. So I just want to pause there and just ask, what would be a mindset that you might have at this stage going through some of these setbacks and frustrations? Maybe bitterness, maybe anger. Are you ready to quit within that? Okay. But also within this, maybe for some of you, you might think, well, maybe there's opportunity because the skills and the times that he went through those hard times, as he shared with me, he said, but that also gave me lots of life experiences. And he was able to pivot and be flexible and have an understanding and see what are different opportunities as these things came up and he worked through them. And he said it also gave him a opportunity to just understand there are many options in life. When we're down to very little money or we're not having success finding work, but there is still people and community around that can help and be with that. Okay, and I see in the chat some people were saying, maybe a defeatist attitude or just, nothing's going right for me, etc. For him, he shared how it helped him learn about persistence and being more resilient in those setbacks. And so this is Lester's story, but I want to just bring it to us that are online and in the room, and then in the future, those that are going to listen to this recording. What's your story? Maybe it's not as up and down as Lester's is or was, but there's pieces of our story that shape who we are. And as we move and we'll be frank in the next, as somebody said in a meeting a few weeks ago, there's an elephant in the room. In the next few weeks, many or some of us or many of us may be laid off, including, and most of you already know, but I'm also getting laid off at the end of March, along with 30 some others that are at Red River College. We've heard MITT is closing. There's EESE, which is out of this building. They're also shutting down. And then there's other organizations that I've been chatting with where they're cutting the newcomer funding programs within that. So there are negative or difficult things that are happening, but do we have that playfulness and that joy or gratitude that I mentioned this morning that we can interact with? And there's opportunities ahead. No matter where you're at, seek the support of those around you, those that know and love you, and even ask your enemy if they have a job for you. But be interactive and just seeing, what's happening at the end of March is not the end for any of us. We are rich and abundant with a lot of resources and things that we have. Let's take that and hold on to that as we move forward. Reach out to TESL Manitoba. We're happy to support with whatever needs you feel you have. Reach out to Osborne Village Resource Center if you're not continuing on in teaching at the end of this month. As we mentioned this morning as well, look at other opportunities. I know some people have said they're going back to university to get retrained. Some people are just taking a few weeks off because they've been overworking themselves the last few months. So there are lots of different things with this. And I'm just going to look through the comments because I know there is more, yeah, within that. And I'll end off this section and with what is your story and where are things at for you. The challenges that have shaped you have been also what made you a better, more empathetic teacher in the classroom. And I think that's what the students sense from us. And that's why you're loved so much by your teacher, by your students, and by your staff and administration, because of who you are and what's created you. I just have one, as we move forward, fear and anxiety, opportunity and growth. Which one will you hold on to as you're looking ahead? And then I'll just share. My students call me Mr. Trevor or Mr. Trevor, depends on where they're from. But my full name is Trevor Lester Pfahl.